still connecting, and we're go. Hello, everybody. I'm really glad to see everybody in the room today. Hi, Pete in Florida. Hello, Jane coming in from England. Hi, Betsy in DC. Hello, Bonnie in Idaho. Great to see you again. Hello, Rich. Nice to see you. I don't know where you're from. We're glad you're here. Hello, Greg. Hello, Karen. Greg is the executive director of Washington Rebels in a tsunami relief shirt. Hello, Karen in Arizona. Hello, Sheila in Florida. And hello, Mary Eagle in Western North Carolina. Caroline in the DMV. Dion in Massachusetts. Hi, Busy Graham, Director of Carpe Diem Arts. So we have both of our partner executive directors in the room today. Great to have both of you here. John, nice to see you again. Glad you're here. And Ida in Cambridge, always good to see your little face, sweetie. Glad you're joining. Carolyn in Idaho. Kathleen in Albuquerque. Lisa, hello. Alan, hello. Judy in Ohio, nice to have you. Beryl in Chicago, also known as Colin's mommy. Adele, nice to see you. And Lisa, nice to see you. Lisa's coming in from Indiana. Dawn, nice to see you. Not sure where you're from. Glad you're with us today. Anne, I think New York. Glad to see you today. Jane, nice to see you. Sandy in Maryland. Nancy's Irish Cow in Washington State. Barbara, great to see you. Anne in the DMV. And folks who don't have your video on, hello to all of you too. Hello also to everybody out on Facebook Live. We're super glad you're joining us today. Welcome to the Washington Rebels Carpe Diem Arts Daily Antidote of Song, day number 164, I think. Yesterday or the day before, I guess, I did a recount. We are actually at 43,000 folks who've joined in this program over the 64 days that we've been going. So we're super excited about that. If you're new to us today, please pop your state and or your country into the chat box so we know where you're coming from. So we've been doing this all of these days at noon every day, singing together. Started in response to the crisis of the virus, but we have been moving along and shifting our lens in response to other crises going on in our nation and around our globe. We've been singing about social and racial justice and thinking forward and discussing two ways to help make our world a better place. We are excited that you join us every day to do this work with us, and we hope to see you tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow as well. A couple quick notes. There's a donate link in the chat box. All of the income goes directly to the artists who are leading us in song. My email is in the chat box. You can use that to get on the Daily Antidote email list, which goes out every day with the song leaders and the lyrics in advance. And I'm also happy to take suggestions and questions anytime. And a big thank you to the entire tech crew in the room today, which includes Colin Bills, Nico Rassi-Dematis, and Wiley White, all managing various platforms here. Thank you so much to all of you. So the really exciting thing that's happening this week is that we're having a partnership with the Library of Congress American Folklife Center, care of Steve Winnick and Jennifer Cutting, who both work at the Library of Congress, but who are also both performing artists who've sung with us in this room. So this is a really nice week to be bringing together a lot of folks that we know and love, doing a lot of things that we love to do. And Steve, I'm turning the hosting over to you. Welcome. We're glad you're here.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, so my name is Steve Winnick, and many of you know me, but some of you don't. So hello to everyone. I work at the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress. And the last time I did this hosting, I actually forgot to say the words American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress, which is sort of like you had one job. so I just got my one job out of the way. And that is a division of the Library of Congress that contains one of the largest ethnographic archives in the world, and one of the greatest archives of traditional song in particular. That archive started in 1928, but it has recordings that go all the way back to the earliest days of recorded sound. So the earliest ethnographic recordings of any kind are actually in our archive. But it also has a lot of great English language folk songs, which is primarily what the people are drawing on in this program. Those very, very early ones are mostly Native American recordings of songs in various indigenous languages. So again, we have a bunch of artists this week who are learning materials from our archive, and that is a program that we started back in 2015, and that was started by my partner in crime, Jennifer Cutting, who came up with this idea for promoting our Alan Lomax collections during the centennial year of Alan Lomax's birth. And what we thought to do was get various musicians to learn material from the archive, and in that case, particularly the Lomax collections, and perform that material in a special showcase at the Folk Alliance International meetings. And that's become an annual thing. We expanded it beyond Lomax, so now it's the Archive Challenge, and it's anything within our archive, and it can be any collection. And we've done it every year since 2015. We've done it several times at the library in sort of showcase concerts, one of which featured the Revels Jubilee Voices. So we've had connections with the Revels in this program before. And when the pandemic hit, we started to think of ways in which we could get people to engage with our collections without having to gather a whole bunch of people together in one place. And the idea we came up with for that is what we call the at-home archive challenge, or the home archive challenge, which is that we ask musicians to record videos of themselves performing material from the archive or otherwise engaging with material from the archive. So it doesn't always have to be a song performance, but that is primarily what people do. And when we started doing this home archive challenge, the idea was not to actually acquire the videos for the library, but to have people share them on social media. So it's just an engagement tool, ways that people can engage with our collections and show the world what they're doing. And then we share them out again through our blogs and social media. And when Revels started doing, Revels and Carpe Diem Arts, who are both great friends of ours personally, Jennifer and I, but also we've worked with the Library of Congress with those organizations. When they started doing the Daily Antidote, it occurred to us that this was a great possibility for collaboration, because it's another venue for musicians who are learning materials from our collections to perform them at home and yet interface with a lot of people, and particularly people who love this kind of song. And so that's what we've been doing this week. And our latest performer today is going to be Nora Rhodes. And Nora is kind of special to Jennifer and me. We met her when she was, I guess, 14. I think what you not even 15. I can't.
11.
Oh, she was 11. Oh, wow. Wow, that's a longer time ago than I thought. You know, time flies when you're as old as I am. So, yeah. So we met her when she was 11. Jennifer and I were on the faculty of Vocal Week at Augusta Heritage Center, and I taught the folk song repertoire class, and Nora came to that class. And she was also studying at that time with Sheila K. Adams and other great people at that week. And she's continued with those studies, both as a singer and banjo player, but also as a scholar. She's starting to do some scholarly research into some of our collections from the Library of Congress, particularly the Helen Hartness Flanders collection, which is a collection primarily from Vermont. The song that she's going to sing today is partly from that collection and partly from the Margaret MacArthur collection, which is another great Vermont folk song collection that we have in the archive. And in both of these cases, we have duplicates of the original collection, which is sometimes the case at the Library of Congress. So the collection is actually, these collections are actually housed at different places in Vermont, one at the Vermont Folklife Center and one at Middlebury College, both of which are important institutions for keeping this material. But the Library of Congress has copies of these collections, so we consider them partly ours. Helen Hartness Flanders, during her lifetime, was married to a US senator, and that's one of the reasons why she made sure that copies of her collections came to the federal government as well as staying in Vermont. Margaret MacArthur is just someone that we've had a relationship with for a long time at the Library of Congress too. So Nora Rhodes is going to perform a great ballad from those two collections, and she, as I said, now for, I guess it's got to be 7 or 8 years, she's been working on this material and thinking about it, and she's done scholarly papers at conferences, and she's done performances at Folk Alliance, and she's starting to have a real reputation as a singer and banjo player. And so we're so happy to have her as sort of the younger generation of performers that we're going to have in the Archive Challenge Week of this collaboration with the Daily Antidote of Song. So I'm going to turn it over to Nora, and she's going to tell us a little about the song and then sing it for us, and we'll sing with her. Nora, over to you.
Okay, hello. I'm really happy to be here with you all today. I hope you're all well and enjoying the fall weather. Okay, yes, so I'm very excited to be able to share a song from the archives with you today. But before I share the song itself and we sing it together, I thought I could share a short slide with you all. That's gonna happen. Okay, cool.
Gypsy daisy, come over the hills, come over the hills and the valleys. He sang so sweet that he made the valleys ring and charmed the heart of a lady. Rattle-daddle-dum, daddle-dum, daddle-dum, rattle-daddle-dum, dink-a-daisy. Rattle-daddle-dum to my marinka-dink-a-dum, to the Maria, marinka-dink-a-daisy.
All right, so that was a photograph on the right of Helen Harkness Flanders of Vermont. So she was collecting mainly in the 1930s and the 1940s around New England. And okay, thank you. Yes. And so because she was the daughter of a Vermont governor and the wife of a United States senator, she had both the time and the financial resources to be able to travel and collect. And she had a great love of traditional ballads, which gave her the drive to preserve over 4,000 recordings. So her collection is quite extensive. And her collection can be found both at the AFC and at the Special Collections of Middlebury College. And in 1948, she brought 3 of her elderly informants to DC, and she gave the first national lecture recital of New England balladry at the Library of Congress. So over here on the left, we've got a photograph of Margaret MacArthur, and she was a very well-loved Vermont performer and collector, and her collecting was mainly done in the 60s and the 70s. And so she was introduced to Flanders, and the two women had a friendship, and so they had quite a long correspondence, and Flanders shared many of her songs with Margaret. Like Flanders, Margaret performed her own concert of traditional ballads at the Library of Congress, but over a half-century later in 2005. So the song which I thought we could sing today is Gypsy Daisy, and so this is a cheerful song about a woman who runs away with a gypsy and has no regrets. So here we've got a photograph from one of Flanders' publications, and so this is the version of Gypsy Daisy, which is also sung by Margaret herself and which Flanders collected for Mr. Delmer Brigham of East Calais. Okay, so we can stop sharing now and I can teach you the chorus. Okay, so I'm going to sing each line of the chorus 2 times through, and you can all join me on the second if that's okay. And just so you know, that recording which was played at the beginning of the slide share was a recording that was from a house concert which I gave last October at the MacArthur homestead. And so singing with me on the chorus was Megan MacArthur, who is Margaret's daughter. Okay. And you can find the lyrics in the chat for ease of following. Rattle-daddle-dum, daddle-dum, daddle-dum. Rattle-daddle-dum, daddle-dum, daddle-dum. Rattle-daddle-dum, dink-a-daisy. Rattle-daddle-dum, dink-a-daisy. Rattle-daddle-dum to my marinka-dink-a-dum. Rattle-daddle-dum to my marinka-dink-a-dum. To the Maria, oh marinka-dink-a-daisy. To the Maria, oh marinka-dink-a-daisy. Has everybody got that? Or do you want to? Okay, we can go through that again. All right. Okay, so why don't we do that whole thing again? So, rattle-daddle-dum, daddle-dum, daddle-dum. Rattle-daddle-dum, dink-a-daisy. Rattle-daddle-dum to my marinka-dink-a-dum. To the Maria, oh marinka-dink-a-daisy. Okay. All right, so if everybody has got that, we can go through the whole song, and After the fourth and final verse, we can sing the chorus together twice through. And please feel free to join in on the verses as well. Like I said, the lyrics are in the chat.
Gypsy daisy, come over the hills, come over the hills and the valleys. He sang so sweet that he made the valleys ring and charmed the heart of a lady. Rattle-daddle-dum, daddle-dum, daddle-dum, rattle-daddle-dum, dink-a-daisy. Rattle-daddle-dum to my marinka-dink-a-dum, to the Mariah, marinka-dink-a-daisy. The boss being late came home one night, inquiring for his lady. The waiter girl gave this reply, she's gone with the gypsy daisy. Rattle-daddle-dum, daddle-dum, daddle-dum, rattle-daddle-dum, dink-a-daisy. Rattle-daddle-dum to my marinka-dink-a-dum, to the Mariah, marinka-dink-a-daisy. Would you forsake your own wedded lord? Would you forsake your baby? Would you forsake your warm feather bed to go with the gypsy daisy? Rattle-daddle-dum, daddle-dum, daddle-dum, rattle-daddle-dum, dink-a-daisy. Rattle-daddle-dum to my marinka-dink-a-dum, to the Mariah, marinka-dink-a-daisy. Last night you slept in a warm feather bed, and in your arms your baby. Tonight you'll sleep on the cold hard ground, along with the gypsy daisy. Rattle-daddle-dum, daddle-dum, daddle-dum, rattle-daddle-dum, dink-a-daisy. Rattle-daddle-dum to my marinka-dink-a-dum, to the Mariah, marinka-dink-a-daisy. Rattle-daddle-dum, daddle-dum, daddle-dum, rattle-daddle-dum, dink-a-daisy. Rattle-daddle-dum to my marinka-dink-a-dum, to the Mariah, marinka-dink-a-daisy.
Oh, thank you all. It's so nice to be able to see you all singing, although I wish I could hear you all too.
Woo! That was beautiful, Nora. Absolutely
was
beautiful. Your voice is angelic. I love it.
so lovely.
Steve.
Thank you so much, Nora.
Oh, thank you.
Wow. Now the funny thing is, so Nora and I were talking about, setting up our presentation today, and Nora and I and Jennifer had extensive email conversations about, first of all, what song she was going to do, and secondly, where the versions came from. And so she informed us that this version of the ballad was the version that Margaret MacArthur sang, as well as coming from the Flanders collection. And I think that it may be the case that Margaret MacArthur actually sang more than one version of this ballad, because the version that I found with Margaret MacArthur singing it was actually slightly different. And then I found the field recording that she had based that version on. So we're going to hear just little clips of that now to show you the variation here and also the kinds of materials that we have in the archive. So Colin, if you could play the first link, which is Margaret MacArthur singing her version with dulcimer accompaniment.
Gypsy Davy came tripping o'er the plain, he sang so loud and gaily, he sang so loud at the greenwood tree, he won the heart of a lady. Rattle-off, daddle-off, diddle-o-din, rattle-off, din-o-daisy, rattle-off, daddle-off, diddle-o-din, she's gone with a Gypsy Davy. The lord of the castle came riding by, inquiring.
So that is one of the things that Margaret did with it. And, dulcimer was not a particularly common instrument in Vermont at that time. There were some around, but it was more of a folk revival and Southern Appalachian thing. But Margaret was actually from the Chicago area and had moved to Vermont as a young woman. And so she had some of that material from the whole folk community nationally, and she brought that with her. So that's how she performed it. But of course, she got that from one of her own field recordings, which Colin can play a little clip for us now. This is a woman named Alice Snow.
Gipsy Davy came tripping on the plain. He sang so loud and gaily, sang so loud that the greenwood tree won the heart of a lady. Ride-along, diddle-o, diddle-o, din, ride-along, diddle-o, daisy, ride-along, diddle-o, diddle-o, din, she's gone to the Gipsy Davy, the Lord of...
So you know that as you can see, it's quite similar to the version that Helen Hartness Flanders collected in Vermont. But it's not identical, and that's what you often find in those sort of regional types of ballads. That the community up in Vermont was all influencing one another in terms of their songs. So you have similar versions, but they're not entirely identical. So that's some of the kinds of materials that we have in the archive at the American Folklife Center, and these are the materials that we're asking artists to engage with, artists like Nora. So we're going to, discuss with Nora a little bit and just ask, first of all, how you came across this version of Gypsy Daisy that you sing.
Well, I first learned it a couple of years ago because I was working on a duet with Deb Flanders, who is the niece of Helen Hartness Flanders, and she suggested this from her mother's collecting, her aunt's collecting, and I was working later that year on the Margaret MacArthur collection, and I found that Margaret had an almost identical version, as well as the version that Steve just played, and so that was very exciting to me to find a second connection to the song, to the same version of the song.
Yeah, so it's a wonderful version, and the connection to both of those collectors is just so important because of both their regional significance in New England and the fact that they're both kind of examples of a kind of woman collector who was very important, particularly in New England, but also all throughout the country. People like Jean Ritchie in Kentucky are also examples of this. People who are performers as well as collectors, and who just did a great service in collecting all of this material. So Nora, tell us a little about your work with the Flanders collection, because it's amazing some of the things you've found out and that you've done with that.
Okay, well, I started working on the Flanders collection more in depth, I suppose, 4 years ago now it would be, because I got it to count for a history project, and so I was working with her materials, but mainly her Library of Congress materials. So my focus was primarily upon her 48 concert. And so that was very telling because it gives a pretty clear view of how she wanted to present New England balladry. But from there, I was very interested in her collection as a bigger piece. And so while my studies have focused on that particular concert, her collection is really quite incredible because of, how extensive it is, how massive. And so I've just been very impressed by what she accomplished in my studies of her.
Yeah, just to put some context to it, she started out recording in the cylinder era, so some of her early recordings are on cylinders, and she moved on to discs and other technologies as time went on. And in fact, some of her cylinders are among the materials that are being used as test cases by the optical, digital reading of cylinders people, the Irene folks, who are they're learning how to play back cylinders that have been broken or damaged just by scanning them optically. So you never actually have to put a stylus in contact with the wax anymore. And it's pretty amazing. Some of the Flanders collection cylinders have been recovered in this way, and they're so important that they're considered a very high priority collection for this. One of those cylinders was actually placed on the National Recording Registry because it's just so significant in the history of folk song collecting. So so Nora has come to visit us at the Library of Congress several times and done research there. What was that experience like? Tell us a little about that.
Well, the first time that I visited the Library of Congress at all was shortly after I met you and Jennifer. So I was 11, and it was completely overwhelming to me because I knew nothing about the archive until I got there, and it was astounding how many materials were there, and just the size of it all. But yeah, I feel like when I started focusing on individual collections more after I started high school, it was a very different experience. And it's certainly much easier when you've got a more focused view like that. But every time I visit, I don't want to leave because I'm absolutely in love with the archive materials and how much you can find out about people's past and people's history. And studying women collectors has, I don't know, it's incredible.
Yeah, and we have some great examples of women collectors in the archive, and I know you've started to look into a few more of them, Eloise Hubbard-Linscott and Sydney Robertson Cowell a little bit with the Emma Dusenberry material. So I know you're gonna work your way through it, and I think Nora may be a significant scholar in this area in the future in various ways on women collectors of within the North American context, but I'm sure other topics as well. People develop more interests as they go on, and so we're really looking forward to seeing all the things that Nora's going to do, and also hearing all the songs that she's going to sing. So I think with that, we should return to another chorus of the song to get people singing again, and and say farewell for this session. So Nora, would you be willing to sing another chorus for us?
Yes, and before I do, I wanted to mention if we can put those 3 links that I sent in the chat, because those sort of showcase 3 very different versions of Gipsy Davy. And so for anybody who's interested in how different the variants can be, it's such a popular song that it's very interesting to look at the variants like that.
Excellent. And I'll pop something in the chat too, which is a link. Nora mentioned that Margaret MacArthur gave a concert at the Library of Congress in 2005. And I think that was it was either the second or the third concert that I worked on as one of the producers. I arrived to work at the Library of Congress in February 2005, and this concert was in June of that year. And one of the neat things was that Senator Jim Jeffords came to the concert. And it was a big production for us because he just had knee replacement surgery, but he didn't want to show to people that he couldn't walk at that time. So we had to get him in and out secretly. He was fine. He was able to walk again 2 weeks later, but at that particular moment, he wasn't able to do it. So we got him in and out, and I managed to get a photo of him with Margaret MacArthur, which is in the blog that I'll share. And one of the neat things about that is that Senator Jeffords was in the same seat that Helen Hartner's Flanders' husband had been in the Senate. So there's this sort of connection of folk song collectors going all the way back from Senator Ralph Flanders to Margaret MacArthur there at the Library of Congress. So I'll share that, and the rest of us will also be able to look at Nora's links.
All right, so why don't we sing the chorus through 2 more times together?
Rattle-daddle-dum, daddle-dum, daddle-dum. Rattle-daddle-dum, dink-a-daisy. Rattle-daddle-dum to my marinka-dink-a-dum, to the Mariah-o, marinka-dink-a-daisy. Rattle-daddle-dum, daddle-dum, daddle-dum. Rattle-daddle-dum, dink-a-daisy. Rattle-daddle-dum to my marinka-dink-a-dum, to the Mariah-o, marinka-dink-a-daisy.
All right, and thank you all very much. And I would like to thank you also to the Washington Rebels and the American Folklife Center for putting this together. It's a lovely program.
Thank you, Nora.
Thank
that
you.
was amazing. Amazing. Loved the chat, loved the music. And thank you also, Steve, for hosting and co-hosting and facilitating all that great discussion. I will say that there are a lot of good questions in the chat box that we couldn't get to today. So I am going to actually send them to Nora and to Steve, and I'll include answers in tomorrow's email if they can get to them that quickly, or in whatever email it is, because there were some really good ones. And thank you to everybody for participating, for taking such an interest, for jumping in, for the singing, for all of it. It's so nice to share all of this with you. And also another thank you to Greg Lewis, Washington Rebels, and Busy Graham, Carpe Diem Arts, who are partnering with us on this. And of course, to the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress, and Steve Winnick and Jennifer Cutting for all of the ways in which we have been able to build this amazing thing. And we're looking forward to more partnerships in the future. Tomorrow we have Saul Paul coming in to sing with us, absolutely not to be missed. So we're looking forward to seeing you again here tomorrow. In the meantime, goodbye to everybody on Facebook Live, and thank you so much for joining us. Come back again tomorrow. Always love to have you here.